Hello there, friends. It's Ashley here from the Loopy Lamb and theloopylamb.com, and we're back for another week of our Amigurumi Advent Calendar Crochet Along. This week we're going to be making a small hat for our dolls to go with the little scarf that we made in the previous week. So to follow along with today's tutorial, you're going to need a worsted weight yarn in two different colors. I'm using Bravo worsted weight in the colors Dove Heather and Lady Slipper. You'll need a 3.5mm or E crochet hook, or whatever hook that you've been using for the duration of the crochet along that you're using to match gauge, a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle, and a stitch marker. And you're also going to need a 3/8 of an inch, or the smallest size, or one of the smallest size clover pom-pom makers, or you can also use a piece of cardboard, or whatever your preferred method for making a pom-pom is. Have those tools available for you. If you're ready to get started, please hit that like button and please consider subscribing to my channel. All right, to get started with our hat, we are going to need our first color of worsted weight yarn. I'm using the Lady Slipper here to make it easier for you to see, and you're going to need your crochet hook. Now, for round one, it does start with a magic circle or adjustable ring. If you've been following along, we've done so many of these. I'm not going to go into too much detail on making one. But if you're new, you can find a video on how to do a magic circle in depth here on the channel. So again, just wrap that around your fingers. All right, so we have our magic circle, and now we're going to place 6 single crochets into that magic circle. Into the circle, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and that's your single crochet. And now we're going to do that 5 more times. So we have a total of 6 single crochets. Now once we have our 6 single crochets, we're going to pull that ring tight. And you're going to need to have your stitch marker handy to mark the first stitch of each round. So for round 2, we are going to place a single crochet increase, which is 2 single crochets in the same stitch, into every stitch around. So going into that first stitch, which is always a little tricky. We're going to do the first stitch, and we're going to place that stitch marker into the stitch. And then we're going to go back into that same stitch and single crochet again. And then we're going to place 2 single crochets into each stitch around. At the end of the round, you should have 12 single crochets. Alright, so I've just finished the end of round 2. I have 12 single crochets, and I'm working into round 3 now. I'm going to move that stitch marker out of the way, and I'm going to place 1 single crochet into the first stitch. Grab that stitch marker, move it up, and we're going to place a single crochet increase into the next stitch. And one last time, as a reminder, that is 2 single crochets into the same stitch. So there's my first and my second, and that's my increase complete. And now we're going to repeat that pattern of single crochet once into the next stitch, and in the following stitch we'll place a single crochet increase. We're going to do that pattern 6 times around our piece. At the end of round 13, we should have 18 single crochets. So just one last reminder, it's 1 single crochet in the first stitch and then 2 single crochets into the next. If you'd like to pause your video and come back to me when you're ready for round 4, I'll be here ready to show you what we're doing next. So I just finished round 3. I have 18 single crochets, and I'm ready to start with round 4. To start round 4, I'm going to place 1 single crochet into the first stitch. Always remembering to move up that stitch marker. And then we're going to single crochet increase into the next stitch. Then we're going to single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So there's 1 and 2. And then we'll single crochet increase into the next stitch. We're going to repeat this pattern 4 more times. And that pattern is single crochet into the first 2 stitches, followed by a single crochet increase. There should be 1 stitch remaining to be worked in this round after you're done your repeat, and when you get to that point, you're going to place 1 single crochet into that stitch. Now I'm at the last stitch of the round that needs to be worked, and as I said, I'm just placing 1 stitch into that stitch, so 1 single crochet. At the end of round 4, you should have 24 single crochet stitches. For round 5, we're going to single crochet into the first stitch, and single crochet into the next 2 stitches, followed by a single crochet increase. And now we'll single crochet in once into the next 3 stitches, and we'll single crochet increase into the next. And that is our pattern we're going to repeat until the end of the round. So we'll single crochet in the first 3 stitches, and then single crochet increase into the next. So 3 single crochets followed by an increase until you're at the end of the round. At the end of this round, you should have 30 single crochets. So I'm at the end of round 5, about to start with round 6. And to start with round 6, we're going to place 1 single crochet into each of the first 2 stitches. So there's our first, and here is our second. And then we're going to place an increase into the next stitch. Again, that's like 2 single crochets into the next stitch. And then we're going to do 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. And then we're going to single crochet increase into the next stitch, followed by 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. We will single crochet increase into the next stitch. We're going to do this 3 more times. This single crochet in the first 4 stitches, followed by an increase stitch until there are 2 stitches left to work, and then you will place 1 single crochet into each of those last 2 stitches. I'm at the end of the round. I have 2 stitches left to work, and I just placed 1 stitch into each of those last 2 stitches. At the end of round 6, I should have 36 stitches. So for round 7, I'm going to start by placing 1 single crochet into each of the first 5 stitches. Okay, and then we're going to do a single crochet increase into the next stitch. Then we're going to single crochet into each of the next 5 stitches. Followed by a single crochet increase into the next. And we're going to follow this repeat around. We're going to do 5 single crochets followed by an increase. At the end of round 7, you should have 42 single crochet stitches. So I just finished with round 7. I have 42 stitches, and I'm moving on to round 8. So for round 8, we're going to start by placing 1 single crochet into each of the first 3 stitches. And then we will single crochet increase into the next. Then we are going to place 1 single crochet into the next 6 stitches. After I have my 6 single crochet stitches, I'm going to increase into the next stitch. And I'm going to repeat that pattern 4 more times. That pattern is 6 single crochets followed by a single crochet increase. So now that I've done all my repeats, I have 3 stitches remaining to be worked, and I'm just going to place 1 single crochet into each of those 3 stitches. At the end of round 8, you should have 48 stitches. So moving on to round 9, we are going to place 1 single crochet in each of the first 11 stitches. Now that I have my 11 single crochets, I'm going to place an increase into the next stitch. And we're going to repeat that pattern, 11 single crochets followed by an increase stitch, 3 more times around the piece. At the end of this round, you should have 52 stitches. If you'd like to pause your video and come back to me, I'll show you what we'll be doing for round 10. Alright, so I just finished with round 9. I have those 52 stitches. And now for rounds 10 through 14, we're going to place 1 single crochet into each stitch around. You should not be increasing or decreasing any stitches at this point. For rounds 10 through 14, we're just placing 1 single crochet into each stitch, which means we should always have 52 stitches around. So if you'd like to pause your video, come back to me, I'll show you our next steps for our hat. So I just finished with round 14 of my hat, and what I've done is I've cut myself a tail of about 6 inches and threaded that tail onto a tapestry needle, and I've pulled the yarn all the way through this stitch. Because what we're going to be doing now is a technique called the invisible finish. I've also seen it called the invisible join, and essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to use our yarn tail to duplicate the first stitch of the round, so that way we get a cleaner color change, and so it's a less obvious color change when we start adding our new color. So to do that, we're going to take our tapestry needle and we're going to insert from front to back through the second stitch of the round, and we're going to pull that so that way we have the front loop that looks relaxed. It does look like it's duplicating the front loop of the first stitch. We don't want to be too tight or you're going to have this bump and it's not going to look natural. So it does take some practice, but I do find that at this point, before it's finished, holding that front loop down with my thumb does help to keep it secure, and this process a little more pain-free. So to duplicate the back loop of our stitch, we're going to take our tapestry needle and we're going to insert it from the top of the stitch, picking up that back loop only and going out through the back of our fabric, like so. And we're going to pull that tight. When I say tight, not too tight. Again, we want it to look naturally like it is the first stitch of the round. So when I'm happy with adjusting that, I'm going to set my needle off to the side and I'm going to grab my new color. So we're going to join our new color into the first stitch of the round, which is that stitch we just duplicated. And I'm going to insert my hook. I'm using a slip stitch here for my loop. You don't have to do that. That's just one of my not amazing habits I've picked up over the years. It just helps me feel like it's more secure, especially when I'm doing the video. So if that's not your preference, you don't have to do that. Just explaining that that's how I do it. So I'm yarning over and I'm going to pull through that loop here, and I've attached my yarn with the slip stitch. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through and chain up 2, and I'm ready to start with round 15 of the hat. Now I will note that at this point, if you would like to crochet over your tails for the first little bit, you can do that by just holding the tails along the back of the first round, and you can crochet over your tails a little bit to help make it a little more secure at this point. So what we're going to do is we're going to double crochet into that same stitch as our join, and we're going to yarn over and insert into that stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop. You should have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And now we're going to double crochet into each stitch around. So I'll show you the double crochet one more time. Yarn over, insert into the hook, the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. And like I said, we're going to just double crochet into each stitch around. We're not doing any sort of increasing or decreasing, just 1 double crochet into each stitch around. So if you'd like to pause your video and come back to me when you're ready to see how we're going to finish off round 15. I will be here waiting to show you what our next steps are. So I just finished my last double crochet of round 15, and I'm going to be doing a slip stitch to join these two halves of the round together. So I'm going to skip that chain 2 and I'm going to slip stitch into the top of the first stitch, completing my round. And now I'm ready to start with round 16. So to do that, I'm going to chain up 2, and then we're going to do a front post double crochet. And I'll show you how to do that. It's just a slight variation on a regular double crochet. And we're going to be working around the first stitch here. We're going to not work around the chain 2. So we're going to yarn over and insert our hook from front to back and back to front around the post of the first stitch. Essentially, you're just picking up that post with your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. And then you'll finish your double crochet as normal by pulling through 2 loops, yarning over and pulling through 2. And that's your front post double crochet. And now we're going to do a back post double crochet, and we're going to alternate these 2 stitches around our piece because it's going to create a cute little ribbing for our hat. And to do our back post, we're going to yarn over and we're going to insert our hook from back to front, and then we're going to push that post back and insert the tip of our hook from front to back. Right? So back to front and front to back. We're pushing that post to the back of our fabric. We're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. We're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that's your back post double crochet. And now I'll demonstrate both of those again. So for our next stitch here, we're going to do a front post double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook from front to back, and then back to front, picking up that post. We're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. Then we'll yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that's your front post completed. So then we'll yarn over and we're going to do the back post around the next stitch. So we're going to take our hook, go through the back of our fabric out to the front. We're going to use our hook to push back that post and push our hook out from front to back to the back of our fabric again. Then we'll yarn over and pull up a loop. Then we'll yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And we're going to repeat this pattern of front post double crochet followed by a back post double crochet around our piece. So if you'd like to pause your video and do your post stitches and come back to me when you're ready to finish this round, I'll show you the next steps for our hat. So I just finished my last back post double crochet of round 16, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that first stitch, again skipping that chain 2, and that's the end of that round. So I'm going to cut my yarn now and finish off, and normally at this point I would go and weave in my ends. So if you'd like to take the time and weave in your ends now, but I'm going to show you what to do to finish off the hat. Okay, so there's our little hat, and now we're going to move on to the next step, which is creating the pom-pom for our hat. So if you have never used a pom-pom maker, this is a 3/8 of an inch. I think that's what it is. It's the small, comes in this Clover package of pom-pom makers, and it's the smallest one in that package. And I usually use my very official term of the pink one. So to make our pom-pom, we're going to be wrapping our yarn around the arms of the pom-pom maker. And it's a very simple process. I like to hold the tail on the inside to get started. And then I'm just simply going to wrap around the arms of the pom-pom maker. And you're just going to fill it. Do this until it's as full as possible. The fuller you make it, the fluffier your pom-pom is. So you don't want to skip on adding the yarn to this because you're going to have a floppy, flat pom-pom. But hey, if that's your preference, you do that. That's up to you. For me, I like big, floofy pom-poms. I want it to be as full as I can get it. All right, so see, as you can see, I'm having a little bit of a hard time getting more yarn on here. So now that I'm satisfied with how full it's going to be, I'm going to just close that arm here. All right, and you want to be on the side where you can take your tail and get it through to the other arm easily. So I'm going to try and get this so you guys can see it a little easier. I'm just pulling that yarn tail between the arms so that way I can start winding the other arms. So like I did with the first, I'm just going to keep wrapping the yarn around this. One tip for making pom-poms is to try and keep a consistent tension, kind of like with our dolls, as you're going, because any loose strands could potentially fall out later, and as a consistent tension just helps it to look better. All right, so I'm almost happy with how much yarn I have here, and I'm going to close the arm on my pom-pom maker, and I'm going to cut my yarn. Now, I haven't overstuffed it, so I'm able to put this down. If not, then your arms are having a hard time staying closed, you're going to have to hold on to it and maybe get some help on this next step. You're going to cut a tail of yarn in the same color. And for me, I like to go way longer than I need to. I usually do about 15, 20 inches because I like to, for our next step, I want to have as much yarn as possible so that way I know that it's secure. So I'm going to set that off to the side. And we're going to take our scissors and we're going to cut along the middle of the piece of yarn here. So if you could see the arms and the yarn wasn't in the way, you're cutting along the gap between the arms. So hold on to the end of the arm here to help keep it secure and just snip along the groove. Then we're going to flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. All right, so all around your pom-pom maker here, you should be capable of seeing the arms because you need to get your yarn tail through that part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my yarn tail and I'm going to put the yarn tail through the middle of the pom-pom maker and I'm going to pull it out to the other side. Now, I personally find this step helpful as I'll take my tails and I'll hold the pom-pom maker down and I pull the tails from both ends until I feel some resistance, because then I know it's directly in the center. It's touching that yarn and I'm getting as close as I can to the middle because we're going to start tying some knots and we want to keep all that yarn tied as tightly as possible, especially if you are definitely giving these to children. Kids are very well adapted to destroy pom-poms that are not well made. So this step is important to make sure that your pom-pom has some longevity to it. So now all I'm going to do is just tie a knot, and I'm going to try and do that as tightly as possible without snapping or breaking my yarn. All right, and then I'm going to flip it over, pull the yarn to the other side, and then I'm going to tie a knot again, and this time it's on the other side. And I'm going to do that. I try to do it multiple times so that way there's a knot on as many sides as possible. That you don't need to do that. That's just, again, my personal preference. My daughter loves to kind of use her fingers and pull at the yarn strands to fluff them up, as she says. So I am always overly securing this to make sure she's not pulling the strands out. So at this point, you might have noticed I've been continuing to knot. I've done a knot now on all four sides of the pom-pom. So if you were looking at it and it was like north, east, south, and west, that's where I've done a knot. You can do more than that if you like. I think mine is pretty good right now. And now I'm going to open the arms of my pom-pom maker to release the yarn, and then I'm just going to pull it apart. Oops, there we go. So now I've got my tails, and I'm going to hold the tails close to the bottom of the pom-pom, and you can see that it's not perfect. There are some areas that could use some trimming, so at this point I'm just literally going to take my scissors and trim it up until I think it looks good. Now, kids don't normally notice a perfect pom-pom or appreciate it. They're just like, ooh, floofy. So I wouldn't worry too much about this. If you really want to go to town and make sure it's perfect, you know, go ahead and do that. For me, I'm just going to try and make it as even as I can, and then I'm going to use my tails to sew the pom-pom to the top of the hat. So, like I said, at the end, you're going to take your tails, use your tapestry needle, go in through the top of the hat. I like to do either the last round or through the center of the magic circle, and then sew the pom-pom to the top of the hat, like so. And that's it. That's how you make your hat. And if you have any comments or questions, I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel. If you are making the doll and you're interested in the bundle does have a second hat pattern because there is an extra hair wig for the dolls. So there is a separate hat pattern available in the bundle, exclusively in the bundle for that hairstyle. So if you're interested in checking that out, that is available in my Etsy and Ravelry shops. Again, thanks so much for watching, friends. Happy hooking, and I'll see you next time.